All right, so let's just dive right in. We're going to talk about something that, well, something we all do. That constant movie that's playing inside our heads. Why on earth do our brains cook up these imaginary scenarios? You know, these arguments we always win in the shower, or these disasters that keep us staring at the ceiling at night. Well, turns out it's not a bug, it's a feature. And today, we're going to get into the science of why.
Okay, be honest with me. How many times this week have you been in the middle of washing your hair and suddenly you're not in the bathroom anymore? You're in a courtroom or an office, or maybe your ex's living room, and you are just delivering the most perfect, soul-crushing comeback. You're brilliant, you're witty, and in your mind, there's a standing ovation. Or, what about this one? It's 3 a.m. and your brain decides it's going to be a horror movie director. It plays out this whole scene where you lose your job, your partner leaves, everything just falls apart. Your heart starts pounding, your palms get sweaty, you're feeling genuine terror over something that is completely 100% imaginary. We all do this. The big question is, why?
So, here's the game plan for this little deep dive. First, we're going to step into the mind's movie theater to see just how big this whole thing is. Then, we'll meet your brain's autopilot, the network that's running the show. We'll find out why your brain is a prediction machine that's kind of hardwired for drama. Then, we'll connect all that science to some real-life mental movies that I guarantee you'll recognize. And finally, the most important part, we'll learn how you can step into the director's chair and take back the remote.
So, let's kick things off with the problem that we're all dealing with here. This almost magnetic pull away from right now, this strange addiction to living in a world that isn't even real. It feels like it's just part of being human, but believe me, it comes with some serious hidden costs.
To really get a sense of the scale here, a huge study from Harvard found that our minds are wandering for about 47% of our waking hours. Just let that sink in for a second. For nearly half of your life, you aren't really here. You're somewhere else, lost in a memory or playing out a future fantasy. That is a staggering amount of time to be checked out of our own lives.
Okay, so to be fair, not all of this mind wandering is a bad thing. That healthy kind of daydreaming, that's where creativity comes from. It's where we solve problems in the background, connect dots we didn't see before. But then there's the dark side. It's when we get trapped in what psychologists call ruminative loops. This is when you replay that embarrassing thing you did 10 years ago over and over and over. Or when you build these terrifying, elaborate what-if scenarios about the future. That's not creative, that's just a form of self-torture.
This quote just nails the trap of rumination. And this is the kicker, right? This little almond-shaped part of your brain called the amygdala, your fear center, it often can't tell the difference between a real threat and one you just made up. So when you're vividly imagining getting into a car crash, your body reacts as if it's actually happening. It starts pumping out stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. You feel the anxiety, the tight chest, the racing heart, all for an event that is pure fiction. You're literally stressing your body out over nothing.
And for some people, this can go even further and become a real behavioral addiction. It's a condition called maladaptive daydreaming. See, when real life feels kind of boring or painful or just not very rewarding, the mind can create this super high reward fantasy world. And in that world, you're the hero, you're a rock star, you're wildly successful. This gives you a nice hit of dopamine, that pleasure chemical, and it feels great. The problem is, when you snap back to reality, the contrast makes your actual life feel even worse, which just makes you want to dive right back into that fantasy, and boom, you're stuck in this really powerful, addictive loop.
All right, so we get it. We do this. We know it can be a problem, but what's actually going on inside our skulls when this happens? Let's put on our lab coats for a minute and get into the neuroscience. It's time to meet the part of your brain that's basically running this whole show, the default mode network.
So let's talk about the default mode network, or DMN for short. And honestly, the name says it all. It's your brain's default setting. It's autopilot. See, your brain usually operates in one of two modes. You've got task mode for when you're focused on something outside of yourself, like listening to me or driving a car. But the second that focus drops, your brain doesn't just go quiet. No, it switches right over to this other network, the DMN. And the DMN's job is basically to think about one person and one person only, you. It's obsessed with who you are, what happened to you in the past, and what might happen to you in the future.
So a really cool way to think about the DMN is like it's your brain's own personal time traveler, or maybe a rehearsal studio. Its entire job is to go digging through the archives of your past and use that old footage to cut together movie trailers for possible futures. That shower argument? That's just your DMN running a social simulation, getting you prepped for the next round. It's a what-if machine that is always on.
And this whole operation isn't just one part of the brain. It's a team. You've got these key players working together.
There's the prefrontal cortex, which is kind of like the brain's CEO, helping with planning. You've got the posterior cingulate cortex, which is like the central hub, pulling together memories and info about you. And the angular gyrus helps you pull up those old memories to begin with. Together, they create this super powerful circuit that's all about you and your life story.
Okay, so that's the what and the where of all this. But why? Why this nonstop simulation? Well, this leads us to this really mind-blowing theory in neuroscience that kind of reframes the entire purpose of the brain. Let's look at how your brain actually builds these scenarios from the ground up.
A lot of neuroscientists are now starting to think that the brain isn't really a reaction machine, it's a prediction machine. That's its number one job. See, to survive, you have to guess what's going to happen next. Is that rustle in the grass a deadly predator, or is it just the wind? Your brain doesn't wait around to find out. It instantly simulates both possibilities and gets your body ready to run. Every thought you have is part of this constant process of making guesses about the world.
And this right here, this is the key to why our brain's movies are so often horror films instead of comedies. From an evolutionary point of view, your brain is not designed to make you happy. It's designed to keep you alive. Think about our ancestors. If they heard a rustle and predicted it was a bunny, but it was really a tiger, well, that's game over. A fatal mistake. But if they predicted it was a tiger and it was just a bunny, they just got a little jump scare, no harm done. So the brains that got passed down through generations, they were the paranoid ones, the ones that always jumped to the worst possible conclusion. That anxiety you feel at 3 a.m. is just ancient survival software running on your modern brain.
So if the DMN is the director and predictive processing is the motivation for the script, then the hippocampus is like the film editor. We used to think the hippocampus was just a filing cabinet for memories, but new research shows it's also the engine of our imagination. It does something called constructive episodic simulation. It takes bits and pieces of your real memories, your boss's face, the anxiety from an old test, the layout of a building, and it literally chops them up and splices them together to create a movie trailer for a future that hasn't happened yet, like that big interview you're worried about. This is why our fake scenarios feel so incredibly real. They're built from the literal scraps of our actual life.
Oof. Okay, that was a lot of brain science, I know. So let's bring it back down to earth. Let's connect all that theory to the mental movies we're all watching every single day. We're gonna look at a few classic scenarios that you might, just might, recognize from your own head.
All right, let's kick things off with the undisputed champion of fake scenarios, the shower argument. This is that endless loop. You're replaying a conversation from yesterday or last week, but this time you have the perfect comeback. You felt slighted, you froze up in the moment, and now your brain is just desperate for a do-over.
So what's happening here scientifically is something called counterfactual thinking, which is just a fancy way of saying thinking about what didn't happen. The purpose is actually pretty smart. Your brain is trying to update its social software. It's running a simulation to figure out a better strategy for next time. And come on, let's be real, it feels good, doesn't it? Winning that fake argument gives you back a sense of control and status, and that triggers a nice little dopamine reward, which is exactly why that loop is so hard to break.
Okay, next up, the one I think we all know a little too well, the tragedy script. This is when someone you love is like 10 minutes late coming home and your brain doesn't think, oh, probably traffic. Nope. It immediately writes, directs, and produces a 3-act tragedy where there's been a horrible accident and you're now planning their funeral.
This is a textbook amygdala hijack. Your fear center just completely takes over the prediction machine. And the brain's purpose here is this really twisted attempt at emotional protection. It's this weird, messed up logic where your brain thinks, hey, if I imagine the absolute worst thing possible and feel awful now, maybe it won't hurt as much if it actually happens. It's like an emotional fire drill that just ends up setting you on fire with anxiety.
And last but not least, we have the fantasy self. This is for those moments when you're just bored or unhappy at work or in your life. You just check out, and suddenly you're a world-famous artist or a brilliant surgeon, or you just won the lottery. You get this amazing rush of excitement and importance.
I mean, this is straight-up dopamine-seeking behavior. Your real world isn't giving you enough rewards, so your DMN just builds a virtual one that's way more exciting. The real danger here, like we talked about with maladaptive daydreaming, is desensitization. If you get your dopamine hits from a fantasy world too often, suddenly, the little wins in real life, they just don't hit the same. They start to feel kind of dull.
All right, we've gone through the problem, the brain science, the examples. Now let's get to the part you've been waiting for. How do we fix it? We don't want to get rid of our imagination. It's an incredible tool. We just want to become the director of the movie, not just some poor person strapped to a chair in the audience. So here are 5 practical, science-backed steps you can take. So we've got 5 really powerful techniques we're going to walk through. We'll start by just labeling the scenario. Then we'll learn how to actively override that negative default setting. We'll talk about a clever way to contain your worry, how to ground yourself in reality, and finally, the most important step of all, turning all that mental rehearsal into actual real-world action.
Step 1, and this is maybe the most important. The second you notice you're in that spiral, you just label it. You stop and you say to yourself, out loud if you have to, this is a mental simulation. This is not real. This is just a thought. This simple act creates something called cognitive distance. It pulls you out of the movie. You stop being the actor and you become the critic watching it. This fires up your logical brain, which helps calm down that panicked emotional part.
Okay, step 2. We know our brain's default setting is catastrophe, so you have to manually override it. If you catch yourself imagining getting fired, you have to force yourself for just 60 seconds to vividly imagine your boss giving you praise. I know, it's gonna feel weird, maybe even silly at first. That's because you're literally fighting millions of years of evolution. But if you practice it, you are actively rewiring your brain to look for good things, not just for threats.
All right, step 3 is a personal favorite of mine. It's kind of genius. Schedule your worry. If your brain won't let something go, don't fight it. Make an appointment with it. Tell yourself, okay brain, I get it. This is important. We are going to worry about this from 5 to 5:20 p.m. today. And then when the thought comes up again, you just say, nope, not now. We have an appointment at 5. This actually satisfies your brain's need to prepare, but it stops the worry from ruining your whole day. And you'll be surprised how often by the time 5 p.m. comes around, you don't even feel like worrying anymore.
Okay, step 4 is all about grounding yourself. See, to shut down that default mode network, the movie theater, you have to turn on its opposite, the task positive network. They're like a seesaw. When one is up, the other is down. And the easiest way to fire up the task positive network is to focus on the outside world. It's called the 5-4-3-2-1 method. So right now, just try it. Name 5 things you can see. Name 4 things you can feel. Name 3 things you can hear. Name 2 things you can smell, and name 1 thing you can taste. This simple little exercise forces your brain out of the internal movie and back into the real world.
And finally, step 5. And this one is so crucial. If your brain keeps replaying the same argument or worrying about the same problem, it's sending you a signal. It's telling you there's an open loop that needs to be closed. That simulation is a symptom of a real-world problem. The only way to really truly shut down the simulation is to take one tiny real-world step. Send that tough email. Write the first sentence. Do a 5-minute search on the problem. Closing the loop in reality tells your brain, okay, message received. We can stop running the simulation now. We're handling it.
Look, your brain is the most powerful virtual reality headset on the planet. It can build entire worlds and solve impossible problems, but it can also build prisons of anxiety for you. The fact that you have these fake scenarios doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. It's proof you have this amazing tool designed to learn and predict and survive. But you have to remember, you are the director. You're not just a passive member of the audience. You have the power to yell, cut, to rewrite the script, and most importantly, to walk out of the theater and back into your real life.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive. So I want to leave you with a question to think about. What is the most common fake scenario that your brain gets stuck on? Is it replaying old arguments, freaking out about the future, escaping into a fantasy? Just thinking about it is the first step. I'd love to see what you think in the comments. Let's talk about it. Thanks for joining.